In the misty embrace of Colombia's mountains, where the roaring waters of the Tequendama Falls echo through the valleys, stood an architectural marvel destined for both fame and infamy, the Hotel Del Salto. Constructed in 1923 by the visionary architect Carlos Arturo Tapias, the hotel was meant to be a symbol of elegance and exclusivity. Perched on a cliff, its panoramic view of the breathtaking waterfall was unmatched, drawing the nation's elite to its luxurious halls. At first glance, the hotel seemed like a dream, a place where nature's raw power met the sophistication of human design. The roaring falls below whispered of adventure and serenity, lulling visitors into a sense of awe and peace. Yet, for all its beauty, there was a disquieting undercurrent, as if the very land it stood upon carried the weight of unspeakable sorrow. The local indigenous Muisca people had long regarded the cliffs of Tequendama with a mixture of reverence and fear. According to legend, the cliffs were sacred, a place where their ancestors, faced with the brutal colonization of Spanish invaders, chose death over servitude. Hundreds of Muisca men, women, and children leaped into the falls, believing their spirits would transform into eagles, soaring to freedom. This tragic legend cast a shadow over the hotel from the moment it was built, with locals whispering of a curse placed upon the land. Despite the ominous stories, the hotel thrived in its early years. It became a hotspot for lavish parties, romantic getaways, and high-profile meetings. The rich and powerful dined in its grand halls, danced beneath glittering chandeliers, and admired the view from their balconies. But the falls, with their mesmerizing beauty, seemed to cast a spell over the guests. Strange incidents began to plague the hotel. Guests reported hearing whispers at night, soft, sorrowful voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. Some claimed to see figures standing by their windows, gazing out at the falls before vanishing into thin air. Yet, these tales were dismissed as mere fabrications, the result of overactive imaginations stirred by local folklore. But the whispers grew louder, the apparitions more frequent, and the hotel's story darker. Before long, the Hotel Del Salto would earn its chilling nickname, the Hotel of the Leap. As the Hotel Del Salto basked in its golden years, the tales of its haunting past began to intertwine with its present. Guests whispered among themselves, sharing eerie stories over candlelit dinners. The ambience was intoxicating. The roar of Tequendama Falls in the background, the dimly lit corridors of the hotel echoing with unseen footsteps, and the unsettling feeling that someone or something was watching. It was during one such evening, as a full moon cast its pale glow over the falls, that the first tragedy of the modern era struck. A young couple, deeply in love and on their honeymoon, was found missing. Their suite was eerily undisturbed. Champagne glasses still half full, a dinner table untouched, and a window wide open, overlooking the abyss below. Their disappearance was never explained. This incident set the tone for what would follow. In the years to come, the hotel seemed to draw not just travelers, but also those seeking an escape from their pain. Stories began to circulate of visitors checking in but never checking out, their belongings left untouched, and their final steps leading to the edge of the cliff. The locals, already wary of the place, started calling it El Hotel de los Suicidios, the Suicide Hotel. To the management, the tales were a curse and a blessing. On the one hand, the notoriety brought thrill seekers, eager to stay at a place rumored to be haunted. On the other, it tarnished the hotel's reputation among the elite. Yet, as guests continued to report spectral sightings and chilling experiences, the hotel became an unwitting beacon for those fascinated by the macabre. Among the most chilling stories was that of a solitary man who arrived one stormy night. He introduced himself as an author, seeking inspiration for his next novel. He stayed in a corner suite overlooking the falls, and was rarely seen outside his room. One morning, his maid entered to find a cryptic note scrawled on the mirror in lipstick. The voices led me home. The window was wide open, the curtains billowing in the wind. The man was never seen again. The hotel's reputation as a haunted haven only grew. Paranormal investigators began to visit, armed with cameras and equipment, hoping to capture proof of the supernatural. Some claimed success. Photographs showing shadowy figures near windows, faint whispers caught on recording devices, and sudden, unexplainable chills in certain hallways. The evidence was enough to fuel the hotel's legend, but not enough to provide answers. The cliffside itself seemed to pulsate with energy, as if the spirits of the Muisca ancestors still lingered. Guests reported seeing fleeting images of indigenous figures in traditional attire, staring solemnly at the falls before vanishing. Was it the land, cursed by the tragedy of the past? Or was the hotel an unintentional gateway to another realm? What was certain was that the Hotel Del Salto was no longer just a retreat for the living. It was a sanctuary for the lost, the sorrowful, and the departed. As the decades passed, the Hotel Del Salto transformed from a glamorous retreat into a decaying relic. Its walls, once pristine and white, became stained with time and secrets. The grand chandeliers collected dust, their crystals no longer sparkling but dull, like forgotten memories. Yet, the stories persisted, growing darker with each passing year. Locals spoke of eerie lights glowing in the windows late at night, long after the last guest had left. Some claimed they could hear laughter echoing from the ballroom, though no music played and no guests danced. Others reported the faint cries of a woman, her voice carried by the wind, always calling the same name, Alejandro. No one knew who she was, but the legend grew. One caretaker, Emilio, who worked at the hotel during its final operational years, shared his harrowing tale. Emilio had been tasked with cleaning the top floor one evening, long after the guests had gone to bed. As he climbed the staircase, he felt an icy chill sweep through the corridor, and the chandelier above him flickered. When he reached the last step, he froze. Standing at the end of the hallway was a woman in a flowing white dress, her hair cascading down her back. She turned slowly, her face pale as moonlight, and stared directly into Emilio's eyes. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, in a flash, she was gone. Emilio swore that the woman left behind the faint smell of roses and a single red petal on the floor. After that night, Emilio refused to step foot inside the hotel after dark. His story became one of many told by staff members who had experienced unexplainable phenomena. Some quit out of fear, while others stayed, drawn to the mystery of the place. The turning point came when the hotel's financial struggles forced it to close its doors in the 1990s. But even as the building stood abandoned, its legend continued to grow. Urban explorers began sneaking inside, documenting their findings and sharing them with the world. They described the oppressive silence of the empty hallways, the way the air seemed heavier as they climbed higher, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. One group of explorers claimed they found a journal hidden in a desk drawer in one of the suites. The entries were written by a man who had stayed at the hotel during its prime. His words were filled with sorrow, detailing his struggle with loss and despair. The final entry read, "The falls call to me. The voices tell me I'll find peace. Tonight, I will leap and join them." The journal ended abruptly, leaving readers to wonder if the man had indeed succumbed to the same fate as so many others. Meanwhile, paranormal enthusiasts began to organize investigations, determined to uncover the truth about the hotel's hauntings. They brought advanced equipment, thermal cameras, electromagnetic field detectors, and voice recorders. The results were chilling. One recording captured a faint voice saying, "Don't leave," while another caught the sound of footsteps in an empty hallway. But the most unsettling discovery was made by a psychic medium named Isabella. During a seance in the hotel's grand dining room, Isabella claimed to have connected with the spirits trapped within the walls. She described a presence filled with sorrow, a man who had leapt to his death and now wandered the corridors, searching for the peace he could not find in life. The session ended abruptly when Isabella screamed and collapsed, later describing a vision of the falls turning red with blood. She refused to return to the hotel, insisting that its darkness was too overwhelming to confront again. Despite its abandonment, the Hotel Del Salto remain alive in the minds of those who heard its tales. It was no longer just a building. It was a symbol of despair, mystery, and the thin line between life and death. Years passed, and the Hotel Del Salto, once a beacon of elegance and now a haunting relic, stood defiantly against time and nature. Vines crept up its walls, reclaiming the structure with each passing season. Yet, the building refused to crumble completely, as if it was bound by the lingering energy of those who had passed through its doors or over its cliffs. Despite its dilapidated state, the hotel continued to draw attention, not just from locals and urban explorers, but also from historians and preservationists. The government eventually intervened, recognizing the site as an important piece of Colombia's cultural and historical identity. In the early 2000s, efforts began to restore the hotel, not as a place for guests, but as a museum that would preserve its mysterious past. The restoration process was no easy task. Workers reported strange occurrences as they cleared debris and repaired the structure. Tools disappeared, only to reappear in places they hadn't been left. Shadows flit across the rooms, always just out of sight. And then there was the sound, soft whispers, like a breeze carrying conversations from another time. One construction worker, Carlos, shared his unnerving experience with a local news outlet. Late one evening, as he worked on the West Wing, he heard the faint melody of a piano. Intrigued, he followed the sound of the grand ballroom, but as he stepped inside, the music stopped abruptly. The grand piano, which hadn't been functional for decades, stood silent in the center of the room. Carlos dismissed the incident as exhaustion, but when he returned to his workstation, he found a note scribbled on a piece of aged paper. "The falls are calling." The handwriting was shaky, and the ink appeared fresh, though no one else had been near the area. As the museum's opening day approached, local legends surrounding the hotel reignited with new fervor. Stories of the indigenous Muisca tribe leaping to their deaths centuries ago became intertwined with the modern hauntings. According to folklore, the falls were not just a natural wonder, but a portal to another realm, a place where spirits could escape the suffering of the mortal world. The museum's curators decided to embrace the legends, dedicating an entire section of the exhibit to the supernatural stories. They displayed artifacts found during the hotel's restoration: a silver locket engraved with the initials AR, an antique mirror with a crack that resembled a screaming face, and the infamous journal detailing a guest's descent into despair. The opening of the museum drew visitors from around the world, eager to experience the eerie allure of the Hotel Del Salto. Some came for the breathtaking views of the Tequendama Falls, while others sought to connect with the spirits that were said to roam the halls. Paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and skeptics alike filled the once-abandoned corridors, each hoping to uncover their own piece of the mystery. But the hotel wasn't done revealing its secrets. Shortly after the museum's grand opening, a researcher named Elena discovered a hidden passageway behind a bookcase in the library. The passage led to a small room containing a collection of letters, photographs, and a map. The letters, written in Spanish, appeared to be correspondence between the hotel's original owner, architect Carlos Arturo Tapias, and an unknown individual referred to only as El Espectador. The contents of the letters hinted at a pact, an agreement that seemed to tie the hotel's success to the tragedies that unfolded there. One letter read, "The falls whisper their secrets, and I must listen. The spirits are restless, but they promise prosperity in exchange for their sanctuary. I cannot fail them, for the cost would be too great." The discovery sent shockwaves through the paranormal community. Was the Hotel Del Salto's haunting tied to a supernatural bargain? Did the spirits of the falls demand sacrifices to maintain their power? Theories ranged from the plausible to the fantastical, but one thing was clear: the hotel's history was far more complex than anyone had imagined. As word of the letters spread, the museum became even more popular, drawing in crowds eager to explore the enigma of the suicide hotel. The air inside the building felt electric, as if the very walls buzzed with anticipation. Guides reported that some visitors left in tears, claiming to have felt a profound connection to the spirits. Yet, Not everyone who entered the museum left unscathed. One visitor, a young woman named Sophia, described an unsettling experience in the grand dining room. As she gazed at a photograph of the hotel in its prime, she felt a hand brush against her shoulder. Turning quickly, she found no one there. But when she looked back at the photograph, her reflection appeared in the glass, standing next to a man in a dark suit who wasn't part of the image. As the mysteries of the Hotel Del Salto unfolded, the museum's reputation as one of the most haunted places on Earth grew. Visitors flocked to the site, eager to experience the chilling stories firsthand. Yet, with every curious tourist who walked through its halls, the veil between the living and the spectral seemed to thin further. One of the most unsettling areas in the hotel was the West Wing, where many of the suicides had reportedly occurred. It was here that the energy felt heaviest, as though the walls themselves carried the weight of sorrow. Guides often avoided this section late in the day, claiming that the temperature would drop suddenly and the atmosphere would become oppressive. One night, after the museum had closed, a security guard named Raphael began his usual rounds. He had worked at the hotel for months and thought himself immune to its eerie aura. But that night was different. As he passed through the West Wing, he noticed a light flickering in one of the rooms. Stepping inside, Raphael was struck by the intense cold. His breath fogged the air as he scanned the room, but there was no obvious source of the flickering light. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Turning sharply, he caught a glimpse of a woman in a flowing white dress standing by the window. "Senora?" Raphael called out, his voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. Instead, she raised a hand and pointed toward the falls. Before Raphael could react, she vanished, leaving him alone in the silent room. Shaken, Raphael reported the incident to his supervisor, but his story was met with skepticism. Still, he couldn't shake the image of the woman and her haunting gesture toward the falls. Over the following weeks, he began to notice other strange occurrences. A faint laughter echoing in empty halls, the sound of footsteps behind him, and the unmistakable scent of perfume lingering in rooms long abandoned. Meanwhile, the discovery of the hidden letters and the mention of El Espectador sparked a renewed interest in the hotel's origins. Historians dug deeper into the life of Carlos Arturo Tapias, hoping to uncover more about his connection to the mysterious figure. What they found only added to the intrigue. Tapias was known for his architectural brilliance, but records revealed a darker side to his life. In the years leading up to the hotel's construction, he had suffered a series of personal tragedies, including the untimely death of his wife, who had reportedly fallen ill after a visit to the Tequendama Falls. Friends described him as a man obsessed with the falls, often speaking of their unparalleled beauty and their unforgiving power. Some speculated that Tapias had made a pact with the spirits of the falls in his grief, offering the hotel as a sanctuary for restless souls. The letters seemed to support this theory, suggesting that the hotel's success was intertwined with its tragic legacy. But why would such a pact be necessary? And who, or what, was El Espectador? Further investigations uncovered an ancient legend among the Muisca people, the indigenous tribe who had once inhabited the region. According to their beliefs, the falls were a sacred gateway, a place where spirits could pass between the physical world and the afterlife. The legend spoke of a guardian who protected the gateway, ensuring that only those deemed worthy could cross. Could El Espectador be this guardian? And if so, what role did Tapias play in the delicate balance between the living and the dead? As these questions swirled, the museum's curators decided to hold a special event, a nighttime tour of the hotel, complete with seances led by renowned spiritualists. The event was billed as an opportunity to connect with the spirits of the past, but some warned that it might disturb the fragile peace of the hotel. On the night of the event, the atmosphere was electric. Candles lined the halls, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Visitors gathered in the grand ballroom, where the seance was to take place. As the spiritualists began to call out to the spirits, the room grew deathly silent. At first, there was nothing, but then The candles flickered wildly, and a cold wind swept through the room. A deep voice echoed from nowhere, speaking in a language that no one could understand. The spiritualist's face paled as she clutched her chest, whispering, "They are here." Suddenly, the grand piano began to play, its haunting melody filling the ballroom. The visitors froze, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. One by one, they claimed to see figures appearing around the room, ghostly apparitions of men and women in early 20th century attire. The event ended abruptly as the spiritualist fainted, leaving the crowd in a state of shock. But as they filed out of the hotel, many reported feeling a strange sense of calm, as if the spirits had been waiting for this moment to tell their stories. Little did they know, the spirits weren't done yet. After the chilling seance, the Hotel Del Salto seemed to become even more alive or haunted, depending on one's perspective. Reports of paranormal activities skyrocketed. Guests visiting the museum claimed to hear whispers in the corridors, see shadowy figures at the windows, and feel unseen hands brush against them. Yet, amidst the chaos, one clue emerged that promised to unravel the hotel's darkest secrets. A local historian named Elena, fascinated by the newfound attention surrounding the hotel, took it upon herself to decode the mysterious letters that had been discovered during renovations. Working tirelessly in her dimly lit office, surrounded by stacks of documents and books on Colombian history, Elena began piecing together a timeline of events that connected the hotel's past with its spectral present. The letters frequently mentioned El Espectador and alluded to rituals performed at the falls. What caught Elena's attention was the repeated use of the phrase La Puerta al Otro Lado, the door to the other side. Cross-referencing this with Muisca mythology, she found an ancient tale about a guardian spirit who protected a sacred portal near the falls. According to legend, the falls were more than just a natural wonder. They were a threshold between the realms of the living and the dead. The guardian, El Espectador, was said to test the souls who approached the portal, determining whether they could pass peacefully into the afterlife or be condemned to wander the earth. As Elena delved deeper, she discovered records from the hotel's construction in the early 1920s. Among them were blueprints annotated with strange symbols and a journal belonging to Carlos Arturo Tapias. The journal was filled with sketches of the falls, cryptic notes about the pact, and an ominous entry written just weeks before the hotel opened. The door has been sealed, but the guardian watches still. May the hotel serve as both sanctuary and warning to those who dare approach the edge. Elena realized that the suicides at the Hotel Del Salto might not have been random tragedies, but part of a larger, more sinister narrative. Could it be that the hotel, built so close to the sacred falls, had become a magnet for lost souls seeking passage to the other side? And if so, was the guardian still enforcing its ancient duties? Determined to uncover the truth, Elena organized a small team to explore the restricted areas of the hotel, including the basement, where strange noises had been reported for decades. The team consisted of Elena, a local paranormal investigator named Santiago, and Rafael, the security guard who had encountered the ghostly woman in the West Wing. Their exploration began on a stormy night, with the sound of rain hammering against the hotel's windows. Armed with flashlights, recording equipment, and a map of the hotel's original layout, they descended into the basement. The air grew colder with each step, and an unshakable sense of foreboding settled over the group. The basement was a maze of narrow corridors and crumbling walls, lit only by the faint glow of their flashlights. As they moved deeper, they stumbled upon a heavy wooden door with intricate carvings resembling the symbols from Tapias's blueprints. The carvings seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. Santiago, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as a trick of the light. But as Raphael reached for the door's handle, a low, guttural voice echoed through the basement. "Quien se atreve a abrir la puerta?" Who dares open the door? The voice sent chills down their spines, and Raphael stepped back, his hand trembling. Elena, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. "We mean no harm," she whispered. We seek the truth. The carvings on the door began to glow brighter, and the room filled with a deafening roar, as though the falls themselves were rushing through the basement. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the noise stopped and the door creaked open. Inside was a small, circular chamber with a stone altar at its center. On the walls were murals depicting scenes from Muisca mythology, figures leaping from the cliffs, the guardian standing watch, and the portal glowing with otherworldly light. Atop the altar lay an ancient artifact, a jagged, obsidian mirror framed in gold. Elena approached the mirror cautiously, feeling its pull even before she touched it. When she finally did, the room darkened and a vision unfolded before her eyes. She saw the hotel as it had been in its prime, filled with laughter and life. But the scene quickly shifted to one of despair. Guests standing at the edge of the falls, their faces etched with sorrow, as El Espectador loomed nearby. The vision ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Elena gasping for breath. She turned to the others, her voice shaking. This mirror is the key. It's connected to the portal and to the guardian. But before they could examine it further, the door behind them slammed shut and the voice returned, louder and more menacing than before. You have seen too much. The chamber grew colder, and the air seemed to hum with a dark energy. Elena, clutching the obsidian mirror, felt its weight go beyond the physical. It pulsed with the essence of something ancient and powerful. Raphael and Santiago pressed against the door, trying to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. The voice boomed again, this time coming from all directions. El juicio ha llegado. Judgment has come. Suddenly, the murals on the walls began to move. The painted guardian, El Espectador, stepped out of the stone as if peeling itself from the surface. Its form was colossal, shrouded in shadow, with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. The team froze, their fear palpable. Santiago raised his camera, but the guardian raised a hand, and the device shattered into pieces without it even being touched. It turned its gaze toward Elena, its voice rumbling like distant thunder. You hold the mirror of truths. Speak now, Seeker. Why have you come? Elena steadied herself, forcing her voice to remain calm. We seek to understand, to uncover the truth about this place, about the lives lost here. We mean no harm to you or the portal. The Guardian's glowing eyes narrowed. Many have sought to understand. Few have survived. The portal was sealed for a reason, to protect the balance between worlds. The hotel stands as a warning, yet humans continue to defy it. Now you have awakened forces you cannot control. Elena glanced at the mirror and realized its reflective surface now showed swirling images of the falls and the spirits of those who had leapt to their deaths. If the portal is dangerous, why not destroy it? She asked, her voice trembling. The Guardian's form flickered, and its tone grew somber. To destroy the portal is to sever the path to peace for those lost souls. Without it, they would wander endlessly, trapped between life and death. The falls are their bridge, the hotel their purgatory. Santiago, despite his terror, found his voice. So what happens now? Are we trapped here too? The Guardian loomed closer, its immense presence almost suffocating. You will be tested. If your intentions are pure, the portal will release you. But if you carry darkness in your heart, it will claim you. The ground beneath them trembled, and the swirling images in the mirror began to pull at them like a vortex. Elena clung to the artifact, shouting to her companions, "Hold on, stay together." One by one, the vortex forced them to confront their deepest fears. Raphael relived the night his daughter went missing, hearing her cries for help echo through the chamber. Santiago saw the faces of people he had wronged, their accusing eyes burning into him. Elena, however, saw something different, a vision of herself standing on the edge of the falls, holding the mirror aloft as the spirits around her reached out, pleading for freedom. Through sheer willpower, Elena resisted the pull of the vision and shouted to the Guardian, "What do you want from us?" The guardian pointed to the mirror. "The artifact binds the portal. Use it wisely, and the balance may be restored. Fail, and the portal will consume all who enter this place." Realizing the weight of her responsibility, Elena raised the mirror and directed it toward the murals on the walls. As the light from the mirror's surface touched the paintings, the spirits trapped within them began to dissipate, their cries of anguish turning into whispers of relief. The vortex calmed and the chamber's oppressive energy lifted. The guardian stepped back, its form fading into the shadows. Its final words lingered in the air. "You have proven worthy. But remember, Seeker, the portal is not a gift. It is a burden. Guard it well." The door behind them creaked open, and the trio stumbled out, exhausted but alive. In her hands, Elena still held the mirror, its surface now dull and lifeless. As they emerged into the stormy night, the Hotel Del Salto stood silent and imposing, its secrets momentarily at rest. Elena vowed to protect the artifact and the hotel's legacy, ensuring the balance between the living and the dead remained intact. But as they walked away, none of them noticed a faint glow returning to the mirror's surface, or the shadowy figure watching from the highest window of the hotel.